And we are back. During this time, like between the recordings, I decided to, because it was annoying me so much the first time, I decided to resort all of these. They were actually in order. I think like when I get to sort of like the 12th and 13th Doctor's runs, I got a little like confused, like, hey, was this before this? But for the most part, I think this is in order. Um, Let me actually, I should have done this before I recorded, but let me actually sort this, what I have so far, into order, and that way the whole list will be cleanly in order when I am done. Let me close that out. Um, yeah. This is I should have done this before I start recording, but oh well, you're gonna see me do it now. It's the long game before Dalek. No, Dalek's first because he was from Dalek, right? Yeah. Um, Okay, that should be good. That should be good. Okay, let's jump into the, because it really feels like seasons 1 through 4 and then the accompanying specials are a show, begin with a beginning, middle, and end, and like seasons 5 through 7 and then the accompanying specials are like one show and that's an end, and then like then from there it gets a little jumbled. But like those really feel like distinct shows, so I wanted to sort of like express that here at least. Anyway, the 11th hour. It's a good start for Matt Smith. This is the first Doctor Who episode I ever saw in my entire life. I started with Matt Smith, believe it or not. I was told that was the right way to start the show. I probably should have started with season 1, but alas, I started with season 5. I did 5, 6, and the first half of 7, then went back and did 1 through 4, and then watched as it aired from the second half of 7 on. But yeah, the 11th hour, it's a good start. Is it amazing? No, but it's a good start. It introduces the characters that in Doctor Who of like Amy and Rory, who are awesome, incredible characters. Really gives a sense of like the 11th Doctor and his differences in personality and behavior from the 10th. So yeah, mid tier. I think The Place Below is also mid tier. Very interesting sci-fi concept of like, I love the idea of like, if you knew that something horrible was needed in order to keep society going, like, would you choose to wipe your memory, or would you like live with the knowledge? And it's really cool concept, but like execution's a little rough. So I'm gonna say mid tier. Victory of the Daleks. I remember nothing positive. It's a very unmemorable episode. Nothing really positive. A pretty lackluster Dalek story. Low tier. Time of Angels, Flesh and Stone. It has a lot of issues. The more I've like read about this episode and the more I've watched videos, essays about this episode, it has a lot of issues. But it is also was my first introduction to the Weeping Angels because I had not seen Blink at that point, and it's really cool. It's a really cool two-parter episode, and it's the return of River Song. It's good. It's good. It has a lot of issues, so I think it's going to go mid-tier. But if it didn't have those issues, it would definitely be high tier. The Emperor's Heir of Venice, Rory's pretty funny in it, but it's a pretty bad episode. Say low tier. Amy's Choice. Really, really cool, interesting concept, but it's burdened by, like, too much cheesiness, which is often an issue with Doctor Who. I think the balance of, because Doctor Who needs cheesiness. It does need the cheesiness to be the show it is, but there's often a balance there's a balance you need to strike, And I think the 12th Doctor eras and the 13th Doctor eras kind of missed this, where it lost all of the cheesiness in favor of seriousness. And episodes like this, English Choice had too much cheesiness over the seriousness. So it's a very fine line to strike, but when it strikes, it hits so well. And this one, I would put in, I'm gonna put in mid tier, because it does have a really cool, interesting story, but the cheesiness is a little too much to bear for it to be in like high tier. Hungry Earth, Cold Blood. This is actually really funny. When I first watched the show, I did not. I was watching on like, I don't know what did I used to watch it on. I think I signed into my like cable network and like watched it on there, and I didn't realize that it didn't have all the episodes. So I only watched Hungry Earth and then right into, was it The Lodger or Vincent and the Doctor next? I can't remember. I think it was Vincent and the Doctor, The Lodger, and then the finale. Yeah, and it went like right into that. I was like, something. I feel like I missed something here, but I didn't realize I did. Anyway, this two-parter is like, it's necessary for the narrative, and the Silurians are like a core part of Doctor Who that it was good that they brought back, but like, I did not feel much for this two-part. I didn't really like it at all. So it's just very boring, and especially in the second part, a little too cheesy for its own good. Vincent and the Doctor, another contender for the best episode of the entire show. It's up there with like Blink in those episodes that are like have transcended beyond the show to the point where like people know of these episodes that aren't Doctor Who fans, and like people watch these episodes as separate pieces of media. It's so beautiful and heartbreaking and heartwarming at the same time. It's probably the best portrayal of mental illness and one of the best portrayals of like depression I've ever seen in media, where it's like that feeling of like no matter like where like as someone who struggles with a lot of like intense depression, like that feeling of like you could have an incredible, amazing like core life experience that you will cherish forever, and that doesn't erase the depression come right back full force, and it doesn't necessarily like erase it, and it's like you have no control over that. And like this is an episode I'm just gushing about this episode at this point, but it is contender for my favorite episode of the show again. I feel like all of the God tiers are like contenders for my favorite episode of the show. I will decide at the end of this like series of videos what my actual favorite episode of the show is, but this is definitely a contender. The Lodger, it's hard to separate these stories that Craig appears in from oh my god, what's the guy's name again? What's the guy's name? The guy that plays him. James Corden. It's hard to separate him from James Corden. Like, this is The Lodger and Closing Time are like harmless, fun episodes, but like when you think about it, it's like, hey, it's just James Corden's self-insert character. Like, it kind of like sours it contextually, but they're fun. They're fun to watch. They're entertaining. They're comedy episodes full and through, which is like fine. You need comedy episodes every once in a while trickled in. Like, it can't just be all serious banger. You know, like you need some comedy. So I honestly, like, James Corden aside, this goes mid tier for me, I would say. My Pandora Opens Big Bang has a soft spot in my heart. It's a mess. It's a mess. It's hard to understand. It's hard to follow, but it was the first big finale two-parter. Like, I felt like I was like experienced something life-changing when I was watching this, like, for the first time in high school. It's the first one I ever experienced. So, like, obviously this was insane to me. And, like, the whole Centurion arc, I actually wrote a whole fan fiction about Rory's time as a Centurion. It's lost to the annals of time because of fanfiction.net. But I wrote, like, a whole fan fiction about Rory being the last Centurion and his experience. One of the best, like, plot points in the series, in my opinion. You know what? Despite its issues and despite being a mess, it really is high tier for me, honestly. A Christmas Carol, very underrated. In my opinion, the best Doctor Who Christmas special. I mean, do you count The End of Time as a Christmas special? If you do, then End of Time would beat it, but I personally don't. I think it's just it's a finale that happened to air on Christmas. Oh, no. What am I saying? Christmas Carol is not the best Doctor Who Christmas special because that's the Time of the Doctor, which I will get to. But this is high tier for me. I love this episode. I think it's a really heartbreaking / warming story. I think Doctor Who does that well, where it's stories where it's on the borderline of heartbreaking and heartwarming. And I think it's a really good companion light story where it showcases the Doctor and how sometimes the Doctor is just trying to do good, but gets in their own way and accidentally trips and does bad. And I think it's a really good exploration of that. So definitely high tier. Starting season 6, which was season 6 when I was first watching it was one of my favorite seasons, and then when I rewatched all of season 6, I realized it's during the pandemic, it's an absolute fucking mess. Season 6 is Moffat's attempting to tell his grand story here. He's okay, I'm going to tell this is what I wanted to do with Doctor Who. I'm going to tell my season long story arc. And Flux tried to do this later, which I'll get to, but this was really pre-Flux, where it was a continuous story going across the whole season like this, and it does not work well. It is upon obviously there's a lot of great moments in season 6, but upon rewatch it is probably the worst season, which is insane because it went from being in my head the best season, one of the best seasons. I mean, obviously nothing's gonna be 4, but yeah, it's just funny. Anyway, this is the start of it. I think the start is great. I think the first 2-parter episode is really good. It introduces the Silence, which is an awesome sci-fi concept villain. I think what they do with expanding the Silence later is weird and kind of contradicts the point of the enemy, I guess. But I think this first 2-part is high tier. Curse of the Black Spot, very, very filler-esque, unmemorable episode. Not terrible, but low tier. Doctor's Wife, same situation for an episode that could have been for the episode that could have been incredible, where it's a human manifestation of the TARDIS. 2 concepts that I think it tries to do 2 really big concepts in one episode and crams them in, and that's a human manifestation of the TARDIS and a evil consciousness taking over the TARDIS. And I think both of those needed space to breathe, and they were both crammed into a short 1-part story. And I think that's really causes it to suffer. And so I'm going to put it low tier. The Rebel Flesh that almost people, just boring. It has a pretty cool concept, and the effects are very memorable and creepy, but it's just a very boring story that did not need to be 2 parts. It's all set up for A Good Man Goes to War, so yeah, I'm gonna put this in low tier as well. Good Man Goes to War was probably my favorite episode when I was first watching the show, and it does not hold up at all. It feels like a season finale. I think that's what it was trying to go for, because I think there was a huge hiatus between this and the next episode, Let's Go Hitler. So it was a very big mid-season finale. But I think the issue here is that the whole point of it is the Doctor is gathering a bunch of allies to go save Amy, and they make up new characters to be these allies, and I think that's where this fails. I think Moffat was so... I heard rumors that Captain Jack was originally supposed to be in this episode, and I think that would have helped it tremendously. and made it feel more cohesive with the rest of the story. But like, we see there is 5 whole seasons of the Doctor gathering allies across the course of his life before this. And then we get to this episode and it's all made up allies that we've never seen before coming to help him. And I'm just like, at that point, like, it just feels weird. It just feels weird. What it does good, it does very well, but like, why not Captain Jack be here? Why wouldn't Martha be here? Like, why wouldn't, like, there's a lot of characters that are still around that like should have most definitely come back here. If Sarah Jane's actress was still alive at this point, Elizabeth Sladen, like, I don't remember when she passed away. If she was still alive, she would have been a great return character. Like, there's a lot of characters here that needed to come back for this, that for it to make it work. Not specific characters, but like just get some familiar faces instead of creating all new allies. And some of these allies, like the Paternoster gang, like, would become classic allies later that were introduced to this episode. But like, you can't use them in this way as their introduction. It just doesn't work. So honestly, this was a high point for me when I first watched the show, but my second viewing brought it down to low tier. Same with Let's Kill Hitler. Season 6 is a mess. that's all I'm gonna say here. Season 6 is very messy. Night Terrors, also low tier. The imagery in this of like being in the fucked up creepy dollhouse is very cool, but like the characters are really annoying, the new characters, so it will go low tier. The God Complex and The Girl Who Waited are like awesome episodes burdened with a shitty season. The God Complex, I'm gonna put it in high tier. I think it is a really, really cool story, a fascinating story, like the exploration of people's fears and the abuse of those fears. It's awesome. It's a great story. The Girl Who Waited, also high tier for me. I think really great Amy story. I think it's one of Amy's best stories, and the visuals in this episode and the environments and the concepts are awesome. It's like peak unique sci-fi. It's something that, like, you know, you've seen a lot of sci-fi concepts done before, but you've never seen an episode that like looks and feels like this and has contrast of like aesthetics. Like, it's really good, really good. Closing Time, another filler Craig episode. So I'll put it, but it's fun. It's fun. I'll put it with The Lodger in that they're both very fun episodes to watch. Like, if it wasn't James Corden, I think people would have a lot more positive things to say about The Lodger and Closing Time. But it's interesting that this, like, it was starting in the Moffat era that was like a tradition, like, oh, the second to last story of each season would be like a hey, checking in on Craig episode. And like, they kind of forgot about that after this season. So there's only 2, which is weird. But like, weird that they used the Cybermen for such a small story. Like big ass villain for a small story. Wedding a Rare Song, season 6 finale. I loved this when I first watched the show. Again, it's an absolute fucking mess. It's a shit show that makes absolutely no sense. And you know what? Shit tier. I'm sorry. It's really bad. Season 6 is a mess. The Doctor, Widow, and the Wardrobe, also shit tier. Probably the least memorable, like, up there with Unquiet Dead and one of the least memorable Doctor Who stories. Like, I couldn't tell you what happened in the Doctor, Widow, and the Wardrobe. It's just bad. Asylum of the Daleks has a lot of plot holes, but is still, I think, when an episode manages to be like very positive in memory and an awesome episode, an awesome season starter, like, despite its plot holes, I'm tempted to, you know what? I take what I said back, because I remembered the whole Amy and Rory divorce subplot that was like ham-fisted into this episode and then like totally disregarded after this episode, and that brings it, it's still really good otherwise, so I'm gonna put it in mid-tier instead of low tier. But like, that fucking subplot should have been written out of a show in an early draft. Like, you should have realized Like Amy and Rory are fucking soulmates. Like Rory spent 2,000 years guarding a box that Amy was trapped in, and then Amy spent 80 years like waiting for Rory and the girl. Like they're soulmate. They wouldn't be fucking getting a divorce over stupid shit. Like it's just unrealistic, you know? Dinosaurs on the spaceship. A lot of people like this episode. I think it's low tier, very unmemorable. Same with A Town Called Mercy, just very skippable, very forgettable episode. Power 3, very fun episode, very cool concept. I like the modernization of Unit that it starts in, that carries it throughout the rest of the series. But yeah, it's funny because in my head, before I did the rewatch, I remembered the villain in this episode being Davros. And when I watched season 4 after this, because the way I watched the show, I was like, oh, it's this guy is back. That's where he's from. I was wrong. It's just a one-off villain. It's not Davros. And I was like, this episode would have worked a lot better if it was, is what I'm saying. But it's so fun. Is it mid-tier or low-tier? I like it more than Dinosaurs on a Spaceship and A Town Called Mercy, so I'm going to say mid-tier. Angels Take Manhattan. It's a messy episode, but it is a fucking great one. It's one of those episodes like where, like I say, like if you can manage to take a story that has a lot of plot holes and is very messy, but everyone still remembers it as a classic and a really good story despite those issues, you know it's really special, you know? Like, and I think despite its issues, it is a really, really good episode. And I think it is a really good send-off for Amy and Rory. And it proves, again, that there was no need for this dumb divorce subplot that they introduced in Asylum of the Daleks. Like they're soulmates and they will do anything to be together. And that's what this episode affirms. Even say goodbye to everyone else they knew, their friends, their family, the doctor, forever. You know, they made that sacrifice because they're soulmates. You know, it's just stupid that like there needed to be any doubt of that. You know, like so yeah, high tier. The Snowman. I like this episode. I think it's I remember it being a fun, good episode. It really, like, you know, the Pastranaster gang is fun, and I really like them. And this is, like, the first episode that brings them back since they were first introduced in... It's backwards. They were first introduced in the episode where they're calling back old allies. A good man goes to war. But, I would say it's mid-tier. It's a fun episode. And it's a good bait and switch where you think you're meeting the new companion, Clara, but it's actually... not Clara, you know, it's another fake Clara, like in this Asylum of the Daleks. So, yeah, cool twist. The Bells of St. John. Very, you know, for a companion introduction episode, it is very unmemorable. I like it, but there's not much, like, substance here. I like the thread. Was the villainous Great Intelligence again? I like the thread of the Great Intelligence being a continuous problem throughout this season. I think that's pretty cool. But, yeah, it was... I'll put it in mid-tier. I'll be generous. The Rings of Akadin. God tier. One of my favorite episodes of the show. Such a unique concept, such a unique setting, incredible music, beautiful, and the monologue that the 11th Doctor gives is one of the best moments in the entire show, and I think is like, for an episode one-off like story like this, to put such a powerful monologue like that, like a series like defining monologue in, oh, awesome episode. Do I want to put it in high tier though? I'm like thinking it through and I'm like looking at the compatriots that are up. No, fuck it. I love this episode. God tier. Cold War, very generic. Shows up on a ship. Alien on the ship. What do we do? Alien movie episode. Low tier. Hyde. I remember this being okay. I think mid tier. I don't remember it being like anything super special, but I remember it being like fine. This was pretty good. Journey to the Center of the TARDIS. I watched this twice when it aired, and then when I was doing my rewatch of the whole show. Could not tell you a single thing that happens in this episode. I don't remember any of it. It was so unmemorable. Has to go in low tier. Crimson Horror. I really like this episode. I think it's very fun. A lot of people have issues with the comedy in this episode, and for somewhat, I do too. But I think it's a really, really fun episode, and it's the best Paternoster Gang story, in my opinion. I think, they're really fun characters. Now that we get to know them a little bit, instead of introducing them in, Good Man Goes to War, I'm still salty about that. And, Vostra, Denny, and Strax, very fun characters, and this is a very fun Paternoster Gang story. And, that really highlights them. So I'm going to put it in high tier, honestly. I really think this is a fun episode. A lot of people don't like it, but I do. Nightmare in Silver, very unmemorable, shitty Cyberman story. It's not terrible, but it goes into low tier. The Name of the Doctor, kind of messy. It starts like the Name of the Doctor of the Doctor trilogy, which I think the other two entries are much stronger. The Name of the Doctor is kind of messy, a little weak. The emotional moments from the 11th Doctor, though, are really fucking good. I think River was shoehorned into this very poorly. There's even a lot I don't remember about this episode, even as I'm trying to think about it, despite, multiple watches, so I'm going to say low tier, honestly. The Night of the Doctor. I was surprised this was on here, because it's a short. It's only 10 minutes long, and it was... Sorry, 1 second. I got a mucus block in my chest, trying to talk. But anyway, The Night of the Doctor, really fucking good. Really good setup to the Day of the Doctor, and it's an 8th Doctor story in the modern era. It was so sick and so well done. High tier, really good, really fucking good. Day of the Doctor has its issues. I'm not going to deny that, but it is still an awesome 50th anniversary special that I think really, really, captures the spirit of this show and what this show is really about. It brings back a lot of, characters in a non-fan servicey way. And I think it's really, really fucking solid. I think it's an awesome experience. It really feels like a Doctor Who movie. It really feels like you're going into... when I saw this in theaters, I was like, hey, this is, the big event. This is, and it really captures that feeling. It does feel like the big event. It is the big, culmination of the Moffat era so far. So, similar to Soul and Earth Journey's End, honestly. I really love this. Time of the Doctor. Probably my favorite regeneration story. I think this is a masterpiece. I think this is... I didn't like it that much upon my first watching of the show, when it was first airing. But, when I rewatched the show, this is, the perfect send-off. Really honestly, I'm going to say even better than The End of Time as the perfect wrap-up to a Doctor's era. I fucking love the Time of the Doctor. I think it is, the perfect send-off for the 11th Doctor and everything he stood for and everything that made him unique as a Doctor. It really is the cashier. It, closes up all of the plot threads running through this era, just like The End of Time did, perfectly. I think it's an incredible story, an incredible send-off for the 11th Doctor. Very emotional, very touching. God tier. And with that, we're going to end this part, and we will continue with the 12th Doctor, Kira Papaldi himself. So, see you guys next time.